In case you're interested, I'm currently using the old copy of the website on Chrome. That's what I'm broadcasting with on my MacBook, just in case you want to know. Anyway, chapter 93, The Castaway. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Let me know. Don't forget, you can send me awards if you want to. You can sponsor me. I'll show you my bio link so you can use that to find my buy me a coffee, etc. I'm still on a new app, no, so I'm using the old normal website with my my MacBook on Chrome. So that's what I'm using at the moment. So another sip. You can't go landscape on the new app at the moment. So that's why it shows you that I'm the fact that I'm landscape shows that I'm not using the new app. Oh, Simon. Right. Chapter 93, The Castaway. It was but some few days after encountering the Frenchman that a most significant event befell the most insignificant of the Pequod's crew, an event most lamentable, and which ended in providing the sometimes madly merry and predestined craft with a living and ever-accompanying prophecy of whatever shattered sequel might prove her own. Thank you, Black-Eyed Dog. Now, in the whale ship, it is not everyone that goes in the boats. Some few hands are reserved called shipkeepers, whose province it is to work the vessel while the boats are pursuing the whale. As a general thing, these shipkeepers are as hardy fellows as the men comprising the boat's crews. But if there happen to be an unduly slender, clumsy, or timorous wight in the ship, that wight is certain to be made a shipkeeper. It was so in the Pequod, with the little green Negro Pippin. Again, remember this was written a long time ago. You know, Pip by abbreviation. Poor Pip. You have heard of him before. You must remember the tambourine on that dramatic midnight, so gloomy jolly. She was more, thank you, yes, I agree. In outer aspect, Pip and Doughboy made a match, like a black pony and a white one, of equal developments, though of dissimilar colour, driven in one eccentric span. But while hapless Doughboy was by nature dull and torpid in his intellects, Pip, though over tender-hearted, was at bottom very bright, and that pleasant, genial, jolly brightness peculiar to his tribe, a tribe which ever enjoy all holidays and festivities with finer, freer relish than any other race. For blacks, the year's calendar should show naught but 365 4th of Julys and New Year's days. Nor smile so while I write that this little black was different. For even blackness has its brilliancy, beyond yon lustrous ebony panelled in kings' cabinets. But Pip loved life and all life's peaceable securities, so that striking business in which he had somehow unaccountably become entrapped had most sadly blurred his brightness, though as ere long will be seen, what was thus temporarily subdued in him, in the end was destined to be luridly illuminated by strange wild fires that fictitiously showed him off to 10 times the natural lustre with which in his native Tolland country in Connecticut he had once enlivened many a fiddler's frolic on the green, and at melodious eventide, with his gay ha-ha, even turned the round horizon into one star-bellied tambourine. So though in the clear air of day, suspended against a blue-veined neck, the pure-watered diamond drop will healthful glow, yet when the cunning jeweller would show you the diamond in its most impressive lustre, he lays it against a gloomy ground, and then lights it up, not by the sun, but by some unnatural gases. Then come out those fiery effulgences infernally super. Wow, that's some sentence. Then come out those fiery effulgences infernally superb. Then the evil blazing diamond, once the divinest symbol of the crystal skies, looks like some crown jewel stolen from the king of hell. But let us back to the story. So yeah, like I was saying, you've got to remember the context of this was written. It was a long time ago, and although, in my opinion, Melville seems to be, it doesn't seem very racist to me. He speaks very well of Tashtigo, etc. But some of his language would, you wouldn't be writing it today. You certainly wouldn't be reading it comfortably. But I have to read it as it's written, I think. Yes, but let us back to the story. It came to pass that in the ambergris affair, Stubbs, after oarsman, chanced to so sprain his hand, and for a time to become quite maimed, and temporarily Pip was put in his place. The first time Stubb lowered with him, Pip evinced much nervousness, but happily for that time escaped close contact with the whale, and therefore came off not altogether discreditably, though Stubb, observing him, took care afterwards to exhort him to cherish his courageousness to the utmost, for he might often find it needful. Now, upon the second lowering, the boat paddled upon the whale, and as the fish received the darted iron, it gave its customary rap, which happened in this instance to be right under poor Pip's seat. The involuntary consternation of the moment caused him to leap, paddle in hand, out of the boat, and in such a way that part of this slack whale line, coming against his chest, he breasted it overboard with him, so as to become entangled in it, when at last pluming into the water. That instant the stricken whale started on a fierce run. The line swiftly straightened, and presto, poor Pip came all foaming up to the chocks of the boat, remorselessly dragged there by the line, which had been several turns around his chest and neck. Tashtiko stood in the bows. He was full of the fire of the hunt. He hated Pip for a poltroon. Snatching his boat knife from his sheath, he suspended its sharp edge over the line, and turning towards Stubb, exclaimed interrogatively, "Cut!" Meantime, Pip's blue, choked face plainly looked, "Do, for God's sake." All passed in a flash. In less than half a minute, this entire thing happened. "Damn him, cut!" roared Stubb, so the whole whale was lost and Pip was saved. So soon as he recovered himself, the poor little negro was assailed by yells and execrations from the crew. Tranquilly permitting these irregular cursings to evaporate, Stubb then, in a plain, businesslike, but still half humorous manner, cursed Pip officially, and that done unofficially, gave him much wholesome advice. The substance was, never jump from a boat, Pip, except, but all the rest was indefinite, as the soundest advice ever is. Now, in general, stick to the boat is your true motto in whaling, but cases will sometimes happen when leap from the boat is better. Moreover, as if perceiving at last that if he should give undiluted conscientious advice to Pip, he would be leaving him too wide a margin to jump in the future, Stubb suddenly dropped all advice and concluded with a peremptory command, "Stick to the boat, Pip, or by the Lord, I won't pick you up if you jump, mind that. We can't afford to lose whales by the likes of you. A whale would sell for 30 times what you would, Pip, in Alabama. Bear that in mind and don't jump any more." Hereby, perhaps, Stubb indirectly hinted that though the man loved his fellow, yet man is a money-making animal, which propensity too often interferes with his benevolence. Quite. I don't know if you'd have said that to somebody who wasn't black, I wonder. But we were all in the hands of the gods, and Pip jumped again. It was under very similar circumstances to the first performance, but this time he did not breast out the line, and hence, when the whale started to run, Pip was left behind on the sea, like a hurried traveller's trunk. Alas, Stubb was true but to his word. It was a beautiful, bounteous blue day, the spangled sea calm and cool and flatly stretching away all round to the horizon like goldbeater's skin, hammered out to the extremest. Bobbing up and down in that sea, Pip's ebon head showed like a head of cloves. No boat knife was lifted when he fell so rapidly astern. Stubb's inexorable back was turned upon him, and the whale was winged. In 3 minutes, the whole mile of shoreless ocean was between Pip and Stubb. Out from the centre of the sea, poor Pip turned his crisp, curling black head to the sun, another lonely castaway, though the loftiest and the brightest. Now, in calm water, to swim in the open ocean is as easy as the practice swimmer as to ride in a spring carriage ashore. but the awful lonesomeness is intolerable. The intense concentration of self in the middle of such a heartless immensity, my God, who can tell it? Mark how, when sailors in a dead calm bathe in the open sea, mark how closely they hug their ship and only coast along her sides. But had Stubb really abandoned the poor little Negro to his fate? No, he did not mean to, at least, because there were two boats in his wake, and he supposed, no doubt, that they would of course come up to Pip very quickly and pick him up. Though indeed such considerations towards oarsmen, jeopardized though through their own timidity, it is not always manifested in the hunters in all similar circumstances, and such instances not infrequently occur. Almost invariably, in the fishery, a coward, so called, is marked with the same ruthless detestation peculiar to military, navies, and armies. But it so happened that those boats, without seeing Pip, suddenly spying whales close to them on one side, turned and gave chase. And Stubbs' boat was now so far away, and he and all his crew so intent upon the fish, that Pip's ringed horizon began to expand around him miserably. By the merest chance, the ship itself at last rescued him. But from that hour, the little Negro went about the deck an idiot. Such at least they said he was. The sea had jeeringly kept its infinite body up, his finite body up, but drowned the infinite of his soul. Not drowned entirely, though, rather carried down alive to wondrous depths, where strange shapes of the unwalked primal world glided to and fro before his passive eyes, and the miser Merman, wisdom, revealed his hoarded heaps. And among the joyous, heartless, ever-juvenile eternities, Pip saw the multitudinous, God omnipresent coral insects, that out of the firmament of waters heaved the colossal orbs. He saw God's foot upon the treadle of the loom, and spoke it, and therefore his shipmates called him mad. So man's insanity is heaven's sense, and wandering from all mortal reason, man comes at last to that celestial thought, which to reason is absurd and frantic, and weal or woe feels them uncompromised, indifferent as his God. For the rest, blame not Stubb too hardly. The thing is common in the fishery, and in the sequel of the narrative, it will then be seen what like abandonment befell myself. Interesting. How much time have we got? Okay, another chapter, I think. So yeah, like I say, the language is of its time, but I think Melville tends to treat his non-white characters, his black characters, his island, New Zealanders and Pacific Islanders, those characters. I think he generally treats them pretty well. He respects them, and yeah, generally. Chapter 94, a squeeze of the hand. So I wonder what's going to happen to Ishmael then. What was going to happen to Ishmael? That whale of Stubbs's, so dearly purchased, was duly brought to the Pequod's side, where all those cutting and hoisting operations previously detailed were regularly gone through, even to the bailing of the Heidelberg tun or case. While some were occupied with this latter duty, others were employed in dragging away the larger tubs, so soon as filled with the sperm, and when the proper time arrived, the same sperm was carefully manipulated ere going to the try-works, of which anon. It had cooled and crystallized to such a degree that when, with several others, I sat down before a large Constantine's bath of it, I found it strangely concreted into lumps, here and there rolling about in the liquid part. It was our business to squeeze these lumps back into fluid. A sweet and unctuous duty. No wonder that in old times sperm was such a favourite cosmetic. Such a clearer, such a sweetener, such a softener, such a delicious mollifier. After having my hands in it for only a few minutes, my fingers felt like eels, and begun, as it were, to serpentine and spiralize. Interesting. As I sat there on my ease, cross-legged on the deck, after a bitter exertion at the windlass, under a blue tranquil sky, the ship under indolent sail and gliding so serenely along, as I bathed my hands among these soft, gentle globules of infiltrated tissue, wove almost within the hour, as they richly broke into my fingers and discharged all their opulence, like fully ripe grapes in their wine. As I snuffed up that uncontaminated aroma, literally and truly, like the smell of spring violets, I declare to you that for the time I lived as in a musky meadow. I forgot all about our horrible oath in that inexpressible sperm. I washed my hands and my heart of it. I began to credit the old Paracelsian superstition that sperm is of a rare virtue in allaying the heat of anger. While bathing in that bath, I felt divinely free from all ill will or petulance or malice of any sort whatsoever. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze all the morning long. I squeezed that sperm till I myself almost melted into it. I squeezed that sperm till a strange sort of insanity came over me, and I found myself unwittingly squeezing my co-labourers' hands in it, mistaking their hands for the gentle globules. Such an abounding, affectionate, friendly, loving feeling did this avocation beget, that at last I was continually squeezing their hands and looking up into their eyes sentimentally, as much as to say, "Oh, my dear fellow beings, why should we longer cherish any social acerbities, or know the slightest ill humour or envy? Come, let us squeeze hands all round. Nay, let us squeeze ourselves into each other. Let us squeeze ourselves let us squeeze ourselves universally into the very milk and sperm of kindness." What? Would that I kept squeezing the sperm forever. For now, since by many prolonged, repeated experiences, I've perceived that in all cases man must eventually lower, or at least shift his conceit of attainable felicity, not placing it anywhere in the intellect or the fancy, but in the wife, the heart, the bed, the table, the saddle, the fireside, the country. Now that I've perceived all this, I am ready to squeeze case eternally. In thoughts of the visions of the night, I saw long rows of angels in paradise, each with his hands in a jar of spermaceti. Now, while discoursing of sperm, it behoves to speak of other things akin to it in the business of preparing the sperm whale for the try-works. First comes the white horse, so called, which is obtained from the tapering part of the fish, and also from the thicker portions of his flukes. It is tough with congealed tendons, a wad of muscle, but still contains some oil. After being severed from the whale, the white horse is first cut into portable oblongs ere going to the mincer. They look much like blocks of Berkshire marble. Plum pudding is the term bestowed upon certain fragmentary parts of the whale's flesh, here and there adhering to the blanket of blubber and often participating to a considerable degree of its unctuousness. It is the most refreshing, convivial, beautiful object to behold. As its name imparts, it is as an exceedingly rich mottled tint, with bestreaked snowy and golden ground, dotted with spots of the deepest crimson and purple. It is plums of rubies, and pictures of citron. Spite of reason, it is hard to keep yourself from eating it. I confess that once I stole behind the foremast to try it. It tasted something as I should conceive a royal cutlet from the thigh of Louis de Gros might have tasted. Supposing him to have been killed the first day after the venison season, and that particular venison season contemporary with the unusually fine vintage of the vineyards of Champagne. There is another substance, and a very singular one, which turns up in this course of the business, but which I feel it to be very puzzling adequately to describe. It is called Slobgollion, an appellation originally with the whalemen, and so is the nature of this substance. It is an ineffably oozy, stringy affair, most frequently found in the tubs of sperm. After prolonged squeezing and subsequent decanting, I hold it to be wondrously thin, ruptured membranes of the case coalescing. Gurry, so called, is a term properly belonging to the right whaleman, but sometimes incidentally used by the sperm fisherman. It designates the dark glutinous substance which is scraped off the back of the Greenland or right whale, and much of which covers the decks of those inferior souls who hunt that ignoble leviathan. Nippers. Strictly, this word is not indigenous to the whale's vocabulary, but as applied by whalemen, it becomes so. A whaleman's nipper is a short, firm strip of tendinous stuff cut from the tapering part of the leviathan's tail. It averages an inch in thickness, and for the rest is about the size of the iron part of a hoe. Otherwise, moved along the oily deck, it operates like a leathern squilgee, and by nameless blandishments, as of magic, allures along with all its impurities. But to learn all about these recondite matters, your best way is at once to descend into the blubber room and have a long talk with its inmates. This place has previously been mentioned as the receptacle of the blanket pieces when stripped and hoisted from the whale. When the proper time arrives for cutting up its contents, this apartment is the scene of terror to all tyros, especially by night. On one side, lit by a dull lantern, a space has been left clear for the workmen. They generally go in pairs, a pike and a gaff man and a spade man. The whaling pike is similar to a frigate's boarding weapon of the same name. The gaff is something like a boat hook. With his gaff, the gaff man looks onto a sheet of blubber and strives to hold it from slipping as the ship pitches and lurches about. Meanwhile, the spade man stands on the sheet itself, perpendicularly chopping it into the portable horse pieces. This spade is sharp as hone can make it. The spademan's feet are shoeless. The thing he stands on will sometimes irresistibly slide away from him like a sledge. If he cuts off one of his own toes or one of his assistants, would you very much be astonished? Toes are scarce among veteran blubber room men. Okay. Right, that'll do for today, I think. How long have we been going? 20 minutes? So that'll do. I hope you're all imagining Ishmael there with his hands buried in the sperm, admiring the friendship that he was forming with his fellow sperm lovers. Squeezing away for all he was worth. Alright, thank you again for watching. Don't forget you can, if you find me on YouTube, put the link up again there, bio.link. Find me on YouTube and subscribe to me there, and you can watch all of my Moby Dick. But I'll see you next week. Thank you for watching. Thanks for the awards. Thanks for following. And I'll see you all next time for more Moby Dick. But I'll also see you tonight, possibly, and in the phone box for phone box quiz. Let's flick the ribbon over the front, shall we? That makes it look nicer. Yeah, okay. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye, everyone.